Zeriel Rivera, better known as Indian Red Boy, was a name that carried weight in the streets of South Los Angeles. Born and raised in the city, Zeriel was no stranger to the harsh realities of gang life. Hailing from the Inglewood families, a notorious set in the gang culture of LA, his story is one that resonates with many who grew up in the same environment, one of loyalty, conflict, and tragedy. His life, though brief, was marked by high drama, controversial moments, and ultimately, a tragic end that would leave an indelible mark on the community. Growing up in Inglewood, Zeriel Rivera, aka Indian Red Boy, grew up in Inglewood, a city where the streets were shaped by gang culture. From the moment he was born, the odds were stacked against him. Englewood was a place where the rivalries between gangs often defined how people lived, interacted, and survived. The Inglewood families, the gang with which Zeriel was affiliated, had its roots deep in the city. But just as importantly, Englewood was part of a much bigger picture in Los Angeles, where gang violence was a tragic norm. Englewood was home to a patchwork of different sets and territories. The Inglewood families, one of the oldest and most influential gangs in the area, was involved in a constant struggle for dominance, which included everything from turf wars to drug trafficking. Like many young men who grew up in this environment, Zeriel didn't have the luxury of an easy path to success or stability. The streets called, and for him, they were a family. From a young age, he was drawn into the lifestyle. This was not just about protecting yourself in a dangerous world, it was about belonging to something bigger than yourself. Zeriel found that belonging with the Inglewood families. For him, it was more than just about the money or the reputation. It was about the people around him, the shared experiences, and the unspoken bond that came with being a part of a gang. But the gang lifestyle is never easy, and for Zeriel, it came with its own set of challenges and obstacles. The loyalty to his gang and the weight of representing his set made life difficult, often placing him at odds with rival groups and pushing him into the middle of conflict after conflict. And while he may have thought he was in control of his fate, the streets, as they often do, had other plans. The rise of Indian Red Boy. Zeriel's notoriety in the streets grew over time. As a young man who was active on social media, he started to make a name for himself beyond the immediate confines of his neighborhood. In a world where the internet and social media often intersect with gang culture, Indian Red Boy was an example of how the streets met the digital age. He had a significant following, especially on Instagram, where he posted videos and pictures that showed his affiliation, his lifestyle, and his thoughts. One of the things that really got him attention was his video in front of a mural dedicated to Nipsey Hussle, a beloved figure in Los Angeles and someone who had a deep connection to his community. Nipsey's mural, located in the Crenshaw area, was a symbol of hope, success, and unity. But Zeriel, in an act that would come to haunt him, filmed himself dissing the mural. In the video, he blatantly disrespecting Nipsey's memory, something that sparked outrage across the city. Nipsey Hussle wasn't just a rapper, he was a symbol of what it meant to rise above the gang life, to give back to the community, and to represent peace and unity among people who had long been at odds. To disrespect Nipsey's mural was to hate for everything he represented. And that was a line many people in the community weren't willing to let slide. Some say that Zeriel's actions were an attempt to gain clout or attention, especially given his position within the Inglewood families. Others believe he may have been acting out of personal animosity or rivalry, but whatever the reason, his actions didn't go unnoticed. The video made the rounds, sparking heated debates on social media and turning Zeriel into an even more controversial figure. It was a move that would come back to bite him. The tensions build. The gang culture in Los Angeles, especially in South LA, is one defined by strict codes of respect and loyalty. Disrespecting someone, particularly someone as revered as Nipsey Hussle, was never going to be something that went unpunished. For Indian Red Boy, the act of filming himself dissing Nipsey's mural was seen as a blatant disrespect, and it would set off a chain of events that would lead to his death. While many in the gang world understood the complex dynamics of loyalty and rivalries, to outsiders, the killing of someone over something as seemingly trivial as a disrespect to a mural seemed senseless. But in the world Zeriel inhabited, this was the reality: everything was connected. Words, actions, and symbols had consequences. Disrespecting a mural wasn't just an isolated incident, it was a challenge to the larger community and everything that Nipsey Hussle represented. The tension between rival sets, especially those in Los Angeles, had long been bubbling beneath the surface. Zeriel's disrespect for Nipsey's mural had stirred the pot, and it was clear that someone, somewhere, would come for him. But he likely didn't expect that this conflict would escalate to the point of his death. The day of the shooting. On July 8, 2020, Zeriel was shot and killed in a shocking and tragic incident that left the streets of South LA buzzing with disbelief. Zeriel, who was also known as Indian Red Boy, was sitting in his car with a friend in Hawthorne, California, a neighboring city just outside of Inglewood. What seemed like a normal day turned into a nightmare. As Zeriel and his friend were parked, talking or possibly just hanging out, a car pulled up next to them. The attackers didn't give them a chance. In broad daylight, they opened fire, unloading multiple rounds into Zeriel. He was hit, and the violence was so sudden that there wasn't even time for him to react. But what made this situation even more chilling was the fact that the shooting was captured on social media. Indian Red Boy's last moments were broadcast to the world in real time. The video, which circulated quickly online, showed him struggling for breath, his body shaking as he tried to hold on to life. Despite his efforts to stay conscious and alive, Zeriel didn't make it. He succumbed to his injuries shortly after the attack. The attackers, who were believed to be part of a rival gang, had likely been motivated by the tension surrounding Zeriel's disrespect of Nipsey's mural. Some reports suggested that the shooting was a targeted hit, fueled by the long-standing rivalry between different factions in LA's gang world. Others speculated that the shooters may have had personal grievances with Zeriel, but one thing was clear: the situation escalated from a social media post to a life-or-death matter in the blink of an eye. The aftermath. The aftermath of Zeriel's death was met with mixed reactions. For some, it was another tragedy in a long line of senseless killings that had plagued the streets of Los Angeles for decades. Others saw it as an inevitable consequence of the gang culture, where respect is earned, and disrespect often leads to violence. Zeriel's death was a stark reminder of how fragile life can be in the world of gangs, how a single act of disrespect, whether intentional or not, can turn someone into a target. In the days following the shooting, many in the Inglewood families and the broader LA gang community mourned the loss of a young man who had been part of their world. But at the same time, there were those who pointed out the role that social media and clout chasing played in the escalation of tensions. Zeriel's decision to film himself in front of Nipsey's mural, dissing the icon, had put him in the crosshairs, and the price for that disrespect was his life. For others, Zeriel's death represented the ongoing cycle of violence that defined the streets. It was yet another life lost to a never-ending battle over turf, respect, and reputation, where one wrong move could cost you everything. Zeriel's story, like so many others in the gang world, is a tragic tale of a young man who got caught up in a lifestyle that offered little in the way of escape. He was a product of his environment, one that valued loyalty above all else, and where the price for disrespect could be too high to pay. His story serves as a reminder of the harsh realities faced by those who live in the shadow of gang culture, and the deep consequences that come with living a life that revolves around reputation, loyalty, and violence. While his life was brief, Zeriel's story is now part of the larger narrative of LA's gang culture, a cautionary tale of how small actions can lead to irreversible consequences. And for those who knew him, Indian Red Boy will always be remembered as a young man who lived by the code of the streets, but ultimately paid the ultimate price for it.